Let's see. Okay. Lots of fun stuff here. Okay, so I think we're live. Amazing. We've got a good 20, 25 folks joining us now. I'm going to turn off my notifications so that I'm not distracted. Very good. Okay.
Good idea.
Yeah. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Okay, so let me set the stage a little bit. This is only the second ever Product Hunt Live, and I don't know. I'm just like super stoked. I think you guys have really like put something together here that's really awesome in Pico, which we just launched today. It seems to be doing pretty well on Product Hunt. Lots of good conversations. You guys like sort of told your whole life stories in the comments there, so I appreciate that. So maybe we'll get into some of that stuff. But why don't we do a little bit of like introductions just briefly so that people know who they're hearing from. And, you know, by the way, if you guys do have questions or comments, the chat is open. There's a little chat button down in the bottom right corner of the screen. Yeah, then we know who each of you are, and then we'll get into some of the backstory and how Pico came to be. Who wants to go first?
I'll kick it off. I'm
Perfect.
Nick Chen.
Great.
Co-founder and CEO of Pico. It's been a really fun journey with Jason. We started this company together. My background, I'm a product designer. You know, Jason and I grew up on the peninsula in the Bay Area. We are, for better or worse, Silicon Valley kids. My uncle is an entrepreneur as well. And I only ever worked at startups. That has been my life. That has been my career. And I just always had the passion for building products, hardware even. And then I found the joy of rapid iteration in software, and then eventually the joy of designing companies, not just products, which brought me to Pico.
And I'm Nick's I'd say worse half, better half. You know, having known each other since fourth grade, it's hard to know. It sort of seemed, I guess, inevitable that we would somehow found a company together at some point. And this one that we've been stewarding for the last couple of years really came out of our shared, desire to have impact and use the skills that we have, which are more or less design skills, design thinking skills, product skills, to say how can we build a product for people we really care about, in an industry we really care about. And the thing that gets us super excited is the fact that we have just awesome customers. I think there are some in the chat, so I'm talking to you in particular. But we have awesome customers doing great stuff, being very creative, informing their audiences, informing their communities, doing journalism, doing great writing, coaching, videos, etc. Like the artistic expression that's happening through Pico. And I think if you go back to fourth grade, next to my conversations then, you'd probably, we didn't quite guess we would end up doing this, but it's pretty predictable.
You're talking about, I clearly remembered the brainstorming session during recess.
Yeah.
I think we were sharing.
I remember it was a car company. It was going to be a car company. Nick had all these car designs, and he was
like actual
excited.
cars, like physical cars, like Tesla.
Physical cars, yeah, physical cars. So that's going to be maybe a pivot sometime within the next year or two. Pico 3.0 is going to be car.
No, you'll have something called macro. It'll be macro.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Although I think that's taken, but yeah. Awesome. Welcome, John. Rodolphe, which of you guys wants to go next? We're just doing basic introductions just so people know who they're hearing from today.
Yeah, I can go. So my name is Rodolphe. I'm French. I've been living in New York for close to 10 years. And I've been involved in the creator economy to some extent for like 10 years also. 15, 20 years in tech and media, a lot of time spent at Google, post-IPO, but before the acquisition of YouTube. Spent a lot of time working on monetization initiatives at YouTube, focusing on content creators. Left Google and YouTube in 2018 to become a startup founder myself. And I bumped into Nick and Jason via Twitter, and I know you're a big fan of Twitter, Chris. And yeah, I mean, we kind of like, yeah, you have to admit it. And yeah, we hit it off with Nick and Jason quite quickly, and I think I was very excited by both their personality and their I guess low profile character, and the potential for the company I think is huge. So I decided to join them early this year, and I'm the chief revenue officer at Pico. Essentially, I'm trying to build the sales, marketing, growth, and partnerships functions, working directly with those two guys. And Jean, who just joined us, and who's gonna take the mic now.
Hey y'all, I'm Jean-Bertrand. I am not French, but I am from a former Belgian colony of Africa, so my name is French. I joined Pico a little bit over a month ago now, at the end of February. And my background is not specifically in this space, but I've worked in startup tech for near a decade now as a product designer and UX designer. I also as a front-end engineer, but most as a product designer is my core focus. And I'm joining Pico to take over product design from our CEO designer. And so I'm really excited to dive deep into the products that people in the space use, and specifically when it comes to Pico, for me, really thinking about how to think about designing and building a product that facilitates creators to do what they're best at, which is creating, and not worry about other things. And so I'm really excited to be part of Pico and to be working with this team.
Well, Chris, I don't know if you can tell, we've kind of hit the talent jackpot.
I was sort of, I feel like that's a whole conversation, which is how you guys have attracted such a great group of folks. I don't know if you want to tell that story, but one of the things I do want to do is just level set and give people a sense for what Pico is. Of course, we're here to celebrate the launch of Pico 2.0. I don't know if you guys can show it off, or if you guys want to share your screens and show the hunt or something, but I think it'd be really, really useful to ground the conversation around the product, and then talk about how you guys attracted, and grew your team, and then also landed this amazing investment. With a bunch of amazing investment partners who, of course, are all over Twitter today, also announcing your launch.
No hand wringing, I promise. Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. We can start with the brass tacks and then kind of go higher level.
Cool.
And really, before I haven't shared my screen with Superpeer before, so hopefully that works. I'll do that in a moment.
Okay.
But before I do
see.
that, in a nutshell, P is software monetization infrastructure for creator businesses. And we use those words very intentionally, monetization infrastructure, because we see monetization being twofold. One is understanding your audience, and the second is creating products that you can sell to them. Right? These are two very fundamental things. We're certainly not the first to explain it this way. But I would like to think we're the first to build a product experience that's really tailored to these two focuses. So let me share with you my screen. Chrome tab, great. So something to note is that Pico has been through, and the obligatory question, can you see my screen?
Yeah, you can see your screen.
Okay, great.
And for anybody who's watching, you can just click on Nick's screen in the left-hand side in case it doesn't come up automatically.
I feel like that is one of the most repeated phrases of 2020. I need to put that on a mug and just show it to the camera.
It would be amazing if there was just like an... Yeah.
It became
if there was an AI or something that responds and it's like, yes, people can see your screen. Just go.
Right. Quick background on the product is that it's been through quite a few iterations. When Jason and I first started this company, we were actually working on micropayments. If you recall, maybe 3-4 years ago, that was all for a bunch of startups trying to do something in that space. and hell, maybe even a few startups still today who are trying against the advice of many, many people in the industry. But that was our starting point. And we've been through many, many iterations. But I think what's really interesting about our product journey is that the first customers we interviewed back then to get things off the ground were actually not who you would consider the most cutting edge creators today in 2021. We were out here in New York talking to Condé Nast, to traditional media, really understand how they were doing audience development and how they were thinking about shifting to new direct to consumer monetization strategies. Because of course, traditional media, 4 years ago was really struggling to get out of advertising revenue. So that was the starting point, which kind of made the product quite heavy from the get-go, to be honest with you.
And why they were trying to get out of advertising monetization? Obviously, there's a huge shift. And I feel like it's really important for you to articulate where Pico has been in this journey where we find ourselves now, obviously in 2021, with just an explosion of a conversation around the creator economy, the passion economy, and all of that. And I feel like it's the speed at which it's happened is a little bit bewildering. And I feel like you would have some unique insights into helping us to understand that process.
Yeah, absolutely bewildering, and certainly accelerated by the pandemic. We've been a beneficiary this past year, I have to admit. But this is really a great story for any technology, internet history out there, because it's quite easy to trace. And to answer your question, it's because of two little companies called Google and Facebook. That's the short answer.
Ones, okay.
Just two tiny ones. Really, what they did was they created the most perfect ad product imaginable. That's what they created. And by doing so, they kind of took away this business model that was owned by media for over a century, from analog even to the early days of digital. Right? They saw that slip away from them because they were just not positioned to do what Google and Facebook were doing, which was integrating advertising into a utility, not just content, or into your friend network, right? Not just headlines. That was groundbreaking and really a fundamental advantage that Google and Facebook built for themselves, and it's irreversible, frankly. And so you really saw that their dominance coming out in the late aughts, early tens, and by the mid tens, what you had was a media industry that was in trouble. And really, when Jason and I first started the company and we're talking to venture capitalists, really we're ready to run, because they just associated that with doom and gloom. They associated that with advertising revenue. But what we saw was, hold on, yes, that revenue piece, kind of scary. But guess what? There are more people than ever consuming more content than ever on more devices than ever. Like, every other metric is up and to the right. How crazy is that, right? So if everything else is looking that good, can we figure out a way to fix that revenue piece? That's what got this conversation started. And we made the mistake in the early years of jumping straight to micropayments, thinking that specific form of monetization was the answer. And it took a few steps for us to back away from that and realize, oh wait, there's a much more diverse set of options available to creators. And actually, because these options are so accessible, thanks to products like Pico now, it's not just traditional media folks who are taking advantage of them. Now you're having kinds of knowledge workers, analysts, creatives.
Wait.
Starting this kind of business.
Pause you to like unpack something there, because you're saying that you jumped immediately to micropayments, and I presume that micropayments, although you can correct me if I'm wrong, like hover from like $1 to a little bit more, or are we talking like micro Pico, like 5 cents, 10 cents?
Pico, yeah, that's the name.
Okay.
Very small. In fact, I think this is probably attributed to Jason's brilliant thinking. He's a behavioral economist, and he came up with this points system for Pico that was much like your cell phone data plan, right? In other words, we were thinking, what are the most successful micropayment models that exist, that are currently in widely in use? Can we mirror that and find success with media? And what we saw with data, or before that, text messages, and before that, minutes, was they are not telling you that this email costs you 5 cents. They're not telling you that this phone call costs you 3 cents. They're using an abstracted unit, megabytes, right? You don't really feel megabytes as much. So can we come up with a unit point system, perhaps, that abstracts the dollar pinch a little bit? And so that was our theory. And if I may say so, it was actually a pretty good attempt at a micropayments product. I think the problems were more on the supply side of these creators really not wanting to buy into yet another click-driven revenue model. Because if you look at micropayments from their perspective, actually it's not a whole lot different from advertising revenue. And
let me try to understand and again hack the behavior here, because I think that it's important to, because I would say that we're still in a micropayments economy, and we're even moving further in that direction in some respects. So either it was the players involved, or it was the product experience, or it was the lack of rails from a just financialization perspective, where money on the internet was a lot harder to transact and there was a lot less trustworthiness in that space. And it is curious to note that Stripe is one of your investors. So clearly they see some future here. I guess like what I'm trying to understand is, back then, who you were selling Pico to, how it was that people got paid. It sounds like people would click on content and then there'd be some micropayment as a result of the click. And the click basically was a measurement of attention. And then as a result of that, then whatever was clicked on would get or would receive some portion of payment. And that seems very similar to either Scroll, which exists now, or Medium's, metered paywall. And so is that similar or different? And then let's once you answer that, then let's quickly jump ahead to like where we find Pico today.
Yeah, I would say Scroll, Medium, definitely at the forefront of that micropayments approach, and I really admire what they're doing there. It's another theory on how this industry can thrive, and frankly, these aren't competing theories even, right? I think it's really taking a village of startups to reinvigorate this industry. So I think there are multiple strategies here that can work. But what you said is exactly right. And because of that, really, we had to sell exclusively to publishers, traditional media companies that already had volume. It's really difficult to, well, a lot of the customers we have today who are entrepreneurs themselves, just getting started, may not have a lot of traffic. It's hard to approach people like that and say, hey, try micropayments. You'll get 3 cents per page view, right? It's really tough for them to assess viability when that's the revenue model. The unit economics are hard to come by. And so I think at the early stages, the idea of a recurring revenue business is just so much sexier, really. It's a lot easier to achieve sustainability that way. And so that's where we gravitated. That's how we developed Pico as it is today, to really support more types of monetization.
Well, and to be clear, Chris, one thing that's what really led this was we had to decide at some point who our customers were.
Right.
Are our customers the end users who are looking for a lower cost way to access premium content, premium whatever online? Or ultimately, is it the supply? Is it the creators? Is it the creator businesses? The reason we were working with newsrooms in the beginning was, aside from Nick's and my real obsession's the wrong word, but passion for the Fourth Estate and local journalism in particular, and trying to build infrastructure for those businesses, we saw the connection to those businesses which have audiences and were already monetizing those audiences and had built out audience development strategies. And so they knew exactly what they needed. It's just they weren't really being served that by software companies in the way that Shopify was serving e-commerce. And then the connection to
why
today's
weren't
creator
they?
economy.
Like, I mean, clearly you guys found this opportunity, but why? And I feel like there was a conversation around local journalism. You know, AOL tried stuff in here. Like, there were a bunch of initiatives. Many of them seem to not work out.
I think there's a number of things, and I'm sure one day we will look back and write
the postmortem is going to be epic.
You know, Nick and I are particularly bullish on local news by itself. Incidentally, we've been bullish the entire time. Everyone, you know, you read media analysts, and I'm going down a rabbit hole that is not the larger creator economy. But the point is that people will pay for content or knowledge or just creativity, basically, digital community that provides value. And so what we've seen is a number of things. First is like infrastructure that has allowed the sort of niche provision of really high quality of just value to audiences. You can provide high quality value really inexpensively to your neighborhood. You can actually sustain a very hyper local journalism operation in the same way that, you know, there's a great newsletter that makes, you know, a couple $1 million a year that focuses just on Ferraris. So, you know, niches monetize well. And the other thing is just secularly, we've seen large demand and increase in purchases online. And so e-commerce, I feel like Amazon led the first wave, Amazon, Etsy, and then we've got Shopify, and then just the ease with which people are paying online easily for content or just anything because they have stored credit cards, they have Apple Pay turned on, they have browser pay. Those things are going together. So now folks aren't thinking, oh man, $5. I don't know about that. I got to think about that. I mean, I remember when some of my first e-commerce purchases, I would like write down my orders. So I would keep track of which one arrived when. Like now you just order all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and so there's a lot of things that have conflated, and this is by the way is what's powering the larger creative economy, is that folks realize that if they create value for anyone in their audience, it could be one person, it could be thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and they have a really easy way to package that value and deliver that value. If you make it easy to pay, people will pay. It's really that simple, and that's that line from local journalism, which to us is just a really interesting flavor of the creator economy that we care deeply about. But it connects all the way through to, you know, we've got yoga studios that are saying, you know, I'm going to do live streams and I'm going to sell day passes, but I also want to sell memberships to those day passes. And I'm going to have some on demand, but I'm also going to do it live. But then I might do some one-on-one coaching as well. That's a really interesting business that Pico doesn't want to get in the way and say, you have to monetize it like this, micropayments or whatever, or even just subscriptions or even just memberships.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a impact there that on the one hand is like very high level. And then if you know what you're talking about, then it kind of makes sense. So I'm just gonna like identify a few things. And then again, I really want to see product. So one is you're talking about,
we took you to the sexiest page of our,
yeah. Is there a sexier,
app, by the way?
like where's the page where all the money happens? Because you know that let's literally see the money shot here. Where is it? Because
I'm still sharing.
Like this, I think. So you guys have done a good job of kind of like laying out where we've been and kind of this transition and this, on the one hand, this faith in local journalism. And I guess what I would want to shift in the mentality or thinking a little bit is when you talk about like local journalism and then you mentioned Ferraris, these are like two different things. One is sort of the geographic relevance. And I think it's still an open question of whether people are willing or able to pay for like the fourth estate and how the fourth estate checks the government as a function. It's just too abstract. Whereas if I'm gonna, you know, pay for a newsletter about Ferraris, you know, in a way that's not to like go down this path, but it's not too different from like NFTs where basically if I can do a fractional ownership of like a Ferrari, then I'm getting like the experience of being around Ferrari culture, in which case I'll pay $5 for a newsletter or I'll pay $5 for like, you know, a piece of the rubber tire on the Ferrari or whatever. So that I feel like I own a piece of it, but that's very different than like, you know, paying for news that goes deep in analysis on what's going on in like the political climate or whatever. So I just want to like separate those two things and also identify the other two shifts that you mentioned, which is personally, if I'm excited or interested in something, I'm willing to pay for it. And also, we've made payments way easier on the web and through digital technology in general. So those things now allow for those people that had that desire to support the things that they're interested in to then recompensate the providers of that value of that information. And so those are the things that feel like they're coming together in this. And Pico basically is providing, as you guys call it, like the operating system for monetization in the space, where it's like, I am generating things of value on a recurring basis. And there are people who are willing to give me the money for it, but I have no idea how to kind of make this work. And so I think if you want to start going through the product now, that would be super helpful. And then also, like, maybe you can talk a little bit about how this relates to Stripe, because like I'm using Stripe for a lot of these things now, and obviously they're an investor. So what is the relationship between that type of monetization operating system, or maybe just Rails?
Yeah, Stripe is the Rails, and Stripe really plays such an important role in this stack. But what they've done is make businesses, our customers' revenue, portable to an extent, right? And we're very transparent about that. If you are not happy with Pico, you can leave. You don't hold your payments hostage. Yes, every meeting.
The D&D, but
every
the
meeting, there's
landline.
no exception.
Who gets phone calls like that?
Jason
gets phone
Babe
calls.
does.
It must be someone in the
He's
audience
the only
who really
one.
wants to get on stage.
I was
Do you have like a
waiting,
VHS player behind you too? Because that sounds, I don't think I've heard that since 4th grade.
But you should have heard the dial-up I had to sit through to get
to this.
Repair
That's
here.
Manu, that's the lag. That's because Jason's on dial-up right now.
It's probably just the clock that's calling to tell him, it's 3:28 p.m. Eastern time, Jason.
Right. It's time to stand. Okay, sorry. Where were we? We were talking about, okay, so Stripe provides some of the Rails. So you're providing a new kind of dashboard for a specific maybe subset of Stripe's users.
Yeah, and really, at the end of the day, Stripe is a phenomenal product. It is a product, right? And I mean, our team of developers loves using Stripe. It is not what we'd say a consumer product, right? As someone who really pours their whole energy, their whole self into content creation, there's a good chance they won't be comfortable in Stripe's dashboard. They won't be comfortable implementing Stripe on their own. So that's why Pico exists. That's why there are a lot of startups now that are packaging Stripe in a more accessible format. So that's what we've done.
Having or being a Stripe user, I can support what you're saying, where Stripe is kind of like being in the back end of a bank and walking around and like not really knowing how the things work. And you're like, oh, look at all this metadata. Like I'm just like swimming in stuff I don't understand. This is really neat, but overwhelming. All right, people want to see the product. So let's dive in here. What is the, like, because I don't think setting up the account page is the first screen that you show people. Or at least if it is, I might offer some sales advice and say, maybe you want to start with a chart that shows revenue. But that's just me. I don't know. We got Roy Bahat's actually in the audience, and he's supporting my assessment here.
Rest assured, this is not the start screen.
Okay.
And so actually what we've done with 2.0, on that topic is we very intentionally ordered the tabs from least used to most used at the top. So the very top is performance. This is where you would see how your business is doing. We are going to do so much to this performance page in the coming quarters. There's not a whole lot to share right now, but we've got a lot of exciting things in the works. And then, we already say, by the way, that there are a lot of customers who are coming in and checking these performance stats every day, basically. So this has become, I don't want to say that Pico is already playing a role of GA here, but I think these creators do feel like they need some source of truth, right? And I think there's an opportunity for Pico to play that role. After performance, you get your contact management. And so if you have to do support, so-and-so needs to cancel their subscription, this is where you would come in and manage that. And this is this is our bread and butter, really, and this is the highlight of the 2.0 improvements. We set out to just create the best possible CRM in a web app, period. Forgetting that this is specific to the creator economy. We've used CRMs from ESPs, MailChimp to HubSpot. We really just picked and chose all the things we liked, and we threw out all the things we didn't like. And so we're very, very excited about this CRM. I mean, little nerdy things that maybe not everyone appreciates, but multi-select with row counting, and the email column is frozen as you scroll horizontally, things like that. It's just it makes it more of a joy to use, and really powerful filters. So I can say, hey, show me everyone who last visited my site before April Fool's Day, right? I could apply that filter. So this is a radically more powerful CRM. And we expect people to come in here every once in a while to really offer support to their subscriber base. And most importantly, to understand how their audience is engaging with them, because this isn't just about paying subscribers and their billing status, right? I mean, as you alluded to, Chris, you can kind of already see that Stripe dashboard. We do have a really nice view of that. But what's really special about Pico CRM, and this is a test account, so I don't think I have any populated data that I can show you here, but we actually tell you when the last time each person visited your site was, if you have tags and categories set up on all your content, which tags and which categories are engaged with the most often. If you have a paywall set up, how many times have they seen that paywall in the past month? Right, so you can use all this metadata to triangulate and figure out basically who has the highest propensity to become a subscriber or to pay in some way. And all of this metadata is then synced to your ESP. So this is really a marketer's dream.
Unpack an ESP. What is an ESP?
Yes, ESP, email service provider. And this is a really critical part of...
so that could be like MailChimp or Substack, or who might you use there?
Substack is vertically integrated, so that's not a platform we're able to connect with. But yes, to MailChimp, ConvertKit, Campaign Monitor, you name it, any of these more traditional ESPs. But we really see ourselves, I mean, like we said, we see ourselves as an operating system, right? We're a connector, we're the hub. We try to be agnostic on this front. Whatever ESP you're using, let's connect to it. Let's basically make it smart, enrich it with all this data that we're able to collect on your behalf. And what can you then do with that? What kind of marketing campaigns can you do to bring more of your audience down the sales funnel? So that's the CRM in a nutshell.
And so what are the types of things that people are really selling? Like, and are they selling through Pico, or they're selling elsewhere and then aggregating it to here? Because like one of the things that and I identify now as a creator, although that wasn't like a label that I would, typically use. And I'm finding, that I'm using a bunch of different tools, SuperPeer among them. But, also I'm using a product called Coffee, which allows me to get donations. And then I'm using Stripe and, now I go in Clubhouse and like they have payments, which goes into Stripe. Like it's kind of a mess, but as Jay-Z said, I'm a business man, not a businessman.
While Nick's clicking on the product page, I think I'll make one interesting point to that, which is there's a difference between, let's call it creator payments. I think Jack Conte just described it as that. And you can look at what Clubhouse has done is adding creator payments. You can think of what Substack has done is adding creator payments to a newsletter platform. And then there's monetization. And I think the distinction is very easily lost, but monetization is everything that happens kind of above the checkout. So how do you get more email signups? So we have pop-up tools and landing pages, sort of like a link tree that Pico host, pop-ups that are really well targeted for your website, et cetera. All the data in the CRM that's to help you understand, where is my audience coming from? Who's the most valuable member of my audience? What are they probably going to buy next? Is it going to be a membership? Is it a donation? Is it a day pass, etc.?
Wait, can you demonstrate that? Because I hear the words, but I kind of want to see functionally, if I've got these subscribers, how does that work?
Yeah. And we have Tom Osmond here too. And Tom's our sort of master well, he's in the audience, I saw. He's our master automation expert. Well, I'd love to have him chat at some point about some of the things that folks connect memberships and passes and subscriptions up to. But while we're figuring that out, Nick has a
I invited him to speak, so we'll see. Great. We'll see if he's able to join.
Yeah. So to get to your businessman point, there are too many monetization opportunities right now that no one startup can address all of them right now. Right. So we are open to you as the creator making money elsewhere, and over time we really aim to make it easier for you to manage. Ideally, in
competitive. But by the way, what's up, Tom? See you again.
Hey, Tom.
It's like video clubhouse. So you're then kind of competitive with like Carrot, right? Like, or at least, I mean, Carrot is doing something where they're a little bit more like trying to be I don't know if it's like a bank, but they're like a credit card for creators. So I think what I'd love to understand from you guys, and I'm not suggesting that your product needs to be one thing or the other, but I'm just trying to understand the solution space in a sense of whether or not you target like, analysis on the income that's coming through, like, bank transactions, whether it looks like you guys are focused more on maybe email and landing pages. And like you said, like above the monetization, like I think
it's right. Nick, maybe I can add some color here. And I think it's probably the most important question, Chris. The way we think about Pico in terms of focus, because that's kind of like how I understand your question. The focus is really on the customer. So creators have fans and they have followers and they have an audience and they try to convert those people into customers. The information about that customer is also spread out between a number of platforms, and the creator, to be able to build a viable, sustainable digital business for the future, needs to understand those people and needs to be able to segment those people to be under if he or she is monetizing the segments of the audience.
Let me hop in there real quick, because I want to clarify something about what you're saying, and I also want to pull in a little bit of your background from YouTube, right? Which I think this is I miss this, but I try to pay attention for acronyms. Use the acronym CRM, right? And CRM obviously has been around like forever, and basically it's a place where a bunch of data gets dumped into. This is like Salesforce's business, and so for the thing that I want to point out is businesses, like if you think about like Macy's or like old conventional businesses, have these CRMs where they dump all this data in. There's all this deduplication that happens. There's this enrichment. Like this is on one hand, like the surveillance economy and how it works, and why they will send you different flyers and stuff like that. And you always get Bed Bath & Beyond stuff, to go buy things if you're in the United States. The difference, I think, and what I want to like hone your comments on is, one, you said the customer. So the question is, whose customer? And so your customer's customer, I think, might be who you're talking about, which is the creator's customer. So in a way, Absolutely. The CRM that you're talking about is like the creator relationship management software. And it's the difference and the change is that now suddenly there's an individual, as I said, Jay-Z, I'm a businessman. Anyway, I'm a businessman. Means that I now have all the obligations, duties, and responsibilities and stress that Macy's, which has thousands of employees, had before. And so managing all that and having hundreds or thousands of customers is something that an individual previously would have struggled to make sense of. And this is something that I talked to Lee Jin about on her podcast, Means of Creation, where as a creator, again, like it's super fragmented, it's super confusing. Tom, I'm sure you experience this. So I guess like if you can help us again to sort of understand how Pico is a tool that's designed for like the kind of consumer level, but creator that is growing their connections, their business. There are people that want to pay them money. Their customer's customer, your customer's customer, the creator's customer doesn't really care or think about all the different touch points that a creator may have with their audience. And yet they just want to talk to them, right? Like the fact that I'm here talking to you guys on SuperPeer, and then I go onto Twitter and I have conversations there, and then I interact with you guys through Slack, and I'm talking to other people on Discord, but I'm also talking to people on Facebook and on LinkedIn, and it just kind of like unfurls. So
Yeah.
that's crazy confusing for me. You guys are providing kind of like the operating system to alleviate some of my confusion. And so let's sort of like take it from there in terms of understanding, again, like the way that Pico is providing tools for that individual that is overwhelmed by all the different touch points that they need to maintain in this new economy. And tell me if I'm wrong about any of that.
You're not wrong, and I think you're an excellent extreme user, but there are more and more of you, right?
Right.
We frequently reference what I think Hunter Walk may have coined this term, the multi-SKU creator, right? That's exactly what you're talking about. I don't think any company has solved this problem yet. But and by the way, Pico 2.0 has not solved this problem. Just to be clear, right? I don't want to set unrealistic expectations here, but we are thinking a lot about this, and we've designed 2.0 to really be a product foundation upon which we can very easily do this in the near future. So this is front of mind for us. It might not surprise you, but our very next product priority, now that this launch has happened, is productizing our API, is making our API endpoints publicly available to other developers so that the Pico CRM can be more of a system of record. And I think that's the key term that a lot of these business owners like yourself are now finding a need for, a system of record. And in more traditional media terms, I think that touches on audience development, or if you want to go real deep in traditional media, CDPs, customer data platforms. These are all touching on this similar need, which has existed in tech for decades, basically in every possible vertical. But I think what's excited us about this is that the broad base of content, generally, whether it's traditional media or the creator economy, does not have a good data solution yet. And so we think if we can really build a strong CRM foundation and make it extensible, build API endpoints that make it far more capable than what our team can do ourselves, then we might be onto something.
I'd love to actually bring, and I feel like I cut Rodolphe off, even though I didn't mean to. So if at some point he wants to like go deeper, he can. Ro, I don't think we're talking about STDs. I'm sorry. We have different acronyms that we're talking about right now. So I guess while we're talking about integrations, we've got Tom here. Like, I'd love to sort of hear from Tom, because he's sort of like the master of like no code integrations and APIs and sort of weaving lots of data together. And I think what would be useful, especially for like the product hunt audience who's familiar with a lot of these tools, there's Airtable, there's Notion, there's Stacker, there's a bunch of different products that come together that help, creators start to build landing pages and things like that. But if you guys are working with Tom, I'd love to understand like what that integration looks like. Yeah, just to also level set, I'll just put in the chat, we are talking about Pico 2.0, which we launched on Product Hunt today. And so if you want to go check that out, say hello, leave a comment, ask questions, you can do that there too. But Tom, tell us about your perspective on both the space and also Pico in its position there. Oh, I think you're muted. That's the other one, right? Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Nope. Interesting.
We can hear you, Tom.
It might be a mic permission.
Are we good? Can you hear me?
Yes, got you now.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
great. Perfect.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Good to see you all. It's been a really interesting chat so far. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure. So yeah, to your point, I think Pico actually sits in like a really interesting space, because I think up to now, a lot of the platforms who are trying to attract creators have been operating on some sort of almost like replace model rather than like work alongside sort of model. So every creator has a variety of different tools and a different stack that they use for something like email, for like a CRM, or for payments. And you've seen traditionally like one route, which is move off of the platform you're currently using and then onto our platform. But I see a lot of value now in the tools like something like Pico or Orbit, for instance, that are being the company or the product that can sit alongside a lot of the current tech they're using, and then also opening up the API to allow you to connect into it and just to feed data in and to allow people to make better decisions around their business and provide useful insights, rather than saying, okay, you have to almost like rip out everything you're currently using to be able to use our software. So I think, well, that's why Pico is really interesting. And it's almost like you're adding another layer rather than replacing. So that's probably my first initial take on it. I don't know if anyone would agree with that.
What are, like, in terms of the things that you'd be most excited about Pico adding, whether it's, you know, from a platform perspective or an API? Like, I think, you know, I just went to your website and you wrote back in January about the infinitely scalable, like, individuals. Oh, do we lose him? Where'd he go? He's like, I'm out. I made my point. I'll see you guys later.
Joining
Okay, well,
from the forest in Scotland. So the Wi-Fi is
exactly. Well, then I can throw this question out to you guys, you know, which is, you mentioned about building out like the API integrations and thinking about Pico as a platform. So maybe let's talk a little bit about Pico 2.0 and what changes and overhauls and, you know, went into this process and where you've arrived at and what it looks like. Because getting to a 2.0, you guys have a beautiful new brand, you know, new design, but what does this allow you to start really focusing on as a business?
I would throw this question to Jean, who has been interviewing a lot of our current customers who are running, I guess you could call the 1.0 creator economy, which is a subscription paywall of some sort or memberships of some sort on their websites, paid newsletters on their website, on a Pico landing page. That's like kind of what's gotten us to this point so far. But Jean's been talking to a lot of these customers as well as people who are not Pico customers, but who we see as like the growing creator businesses of tomorrow.
Get like insights.
And Jean, you know, he's going to be designing most of what we ship out of Pico next. So I'm going to pass it to him.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's been really interesting in the time, you know, since I've been at Pico, in you know, the initial stages of this research that I've been doing with Rodolphe, one of the things that's like really struck me is that, you know, a lot of these folks have, you know, a bunch of tools that they're managing, right? And there's a lot of, you know, there's a couple of things that speak to like some of the things that you mentioned about prioritizing the API and the CRM. And, you know, when Nick first was going through the product and show the performance, one of the reasons why that's a pretty high priority for us to address in the next coming quarters as well is that one of the things that people are really looking for is not just, you know, analytics and data about what's happening, but really hoping for insights about sort of what they can peel away from that data. And so those are some of the things that, you know, I hope that we can start thinking about how we address, not just, you know, giving you this like cache of data, but really actually giving you valuable information about actionable things you can do with that data. And then also making it much easier. You know, there's a couple of folks we've talked to who spend really not that much time. I mean, they spend a decent amount of time in Pico configuring things, but it's like sort of like, you know, once or twice or maybe 3 times a week. But they really want to focus on, you know, the core part of their business, which is creating content. And so I think sort of for me as a designer, the guiding principle continues to be, you know, how do we design a platform and a product that makes it so much easier for these folks who deal with, you know, so many desperate tools here and there and have, you know, customers like all around the world who are very different. How do we make managing their businesses so easy that they can actually get back even more time than they already have to focus on the content creation? I think that's been, you know, a pretty big takeaway from the conversations I've been having so far.
So like I'm really, the thing that I struggle with in some respects is how different each of the different types of creator businesses exist, right? Like, and what I mean by that is, on the one hand, there's the core thing that the creator, you know, produces or creates, right? There's some loop essentially that you're sort of in. there are people who are just creating digital content, right? And for them, you might imagine like an Instagram scheduling tool might be great, or, you know, some sort of other tool that, you know, brings in a bunch of stuff from Canva or from other platforms. Like, how are you even within your business, like segmenting, I guess, these different creators and deciding which tools belong inside of Pico and which ones actually should be handled by third parties? And this goes, well, sort of, I want to hear from you, Jean, and then we'll go back to Tom in terms of how he sees, again, like this ecosystem kind of emerging.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as like how like the segmenting, I think Nick can probably talk to that point a little bit better than I can. But I think one of the things that, you know, that I think so far that I've noticed is there's definitely, and I think, you know, when we talk about productizing the API, I think, you know, we're like aware that there's some products that, you know, either inherently, you know, don't belong in Pico or aren't in Pico yet. And so, but we still want to leverage the data that you have in our CRM to make, you know, as we've been saying, to make your tech stack smarter across the board. And so, you know, I think those things we'll kind of figure out as we'll look at different things. But I think for me, you know, one of the things that I really think about, I've started to really think about is, you know, especially if you're a creator, you know, if you're a writer, for example, right, and, you know, folks come to your site, but you also have events and you sell T-shirts, you know, it's really hard to sort of make a connection between that person sort of across all those activities. And, you know, if you could hop into Pico and you could see, hey, like this super loyal reader came to this event and also bought this T-shirt from my Shopify store and also did this thing, then, you know, we can really start empowering creators to like do even more for their most loyal fans.
Yeah, I don't want to get into like clout and, you know, creator coins and things like that, but it's hard not to kind of think about what one kind of like, you know, fan loyalty and rewarding people over time as just a general trend or concept, right? And there are ways of doing that sort of, you know, without the blockchain and without crypto, which I think is good and fine. I guess like what I'm hearing though, and again, like what I want to think about is also how then Pico relates to platforms like OnlyFans or Patreon. Like, are you competitive with them or are you adjacent to them? If I already have a following on any of those, would I continue to use those, I guess?
Well,
I'd say we are.
Oh, go ahead, Nick. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I would say we're adjacent more than we are competitive. The economy is gigantic. And to your point, Chris, there's a wide variety of creator types. You might have some that, like you said, are just posting on Instagram. And if that's all they do, then it's probably likely that all their revenue comes from sponsored content, perhaps, right? In those situations, Pico doesn't really play a role in their business. We don't need to. And in a similar way, Patreon, OnlyFans, they do a really good job providing a hyper verticalized and really easy to use solution for a creator who does perhaps one and only needs to distribute through one point. We encourage those creators to in the same way that, you know, Substack is doing phenomenally well right now, and we have a lot of, they you know, there are some creators out there who only want to do an email newsletter. That's it. Great. Is a good choice.
You're really focused on the multi-SKU creator then. Like really, if you have multiple different, you know, streams of either revenue or, you know, maintaining relationships. I mean, and we talked about this before, and I guess it's so worth hammering this home because one, like you say, the creator economy is enormous. And as a result, it's easy to lump everything together and to say, oh, this is just like that, or it's like that. The reason why I'm asking these questions in this way is to really differentiate and define and delineate what defines what Pico is doing, what your mission is, and who you ultimately serve best. Because the more that you're able to articulate the customers that you serve through your messaging, your marketing, and not just saying, oh, creators are who we want to serve, I think the more likely it is you'll attract the right set of people. So I think that's
you're absolutely right, Chris. We're focusing on professional creators, at least today, which means people that are.
Give examples. Who are the people who come to mind?
Of course, like so. One good example is Mario Gabriele, who runs The Generalist, what is the generalist? It's a newsletter, it's a community today mostly, but it's probably going to become something else moving forward. And Mario used to be in the venture industry, kind of like left the venture industry to become a full-time professional creator. So that's a very good example. Team Urban has been kind of a legacy customer of Pico for a really long time. Team also does this for a living. Jacob Dunley. So Jacob maybe like a little bit of a, an exception because he does work at Morning Brew, but he's like, dedicated to a media operator, which is a fascinating blog. So those types of creators are earning a large portion of their income through their creation, their work online, and monetization of a small niche audience. So that's the type of creator that we focus on. When you think about what Jason was saying at the very beginning of this call, talking about local newsrooms, what are local newsrooms? They're essentially a small team of content creators, and they are monetizing a community, a niche audience. And what we see at Pico is that I think it's 85%, almost 90% of our customers are teams of 1 to 10. So to get back to your question, it's professional creators. When we say creators, we actually don't necessarily mean individuals. We mean small teams. And our understanding of what creators are is that those businesses, those teams need to stay quite nimble and small to be able to thrive and be viable as a business. And I don't know if you've read The Passion Economy by Adam Davidson, but it's actually one of his principles. To succeed in this new economy, which is the new global economy, at least that's what he says, and we tend to agree at Pico, you need to stay small. You're not going to become the worldwide company. You're never going to have thousands of employees and billions of dollars of revenue, but you can still have a very successful business focused on content creation and using tools like Pico that help you scale 10x the back end of your business, because that's what's really specific about creators. They are very much like startups, but they have slightly different constraints. There is a portion of the business that is never, ever going to scale, which is, the creation piece of it. So they need, very powerful software solutions to be able to scale the rest of the business. As a creator, you have to figure out how you're going to become a business, starting, as an individual. You were talking about OnlyFans. I mentioned I was coming from YouTube. All those verticalized platforms, they're essentially great for the creator that's starting because you can try, test, iterate ideas and find an audience and start nurturing that audience, build that audience, grow that audience. You start earning revenue. And at some point, when you start making, let's say, maybe more than $10,000, $50,000 of revenue, you're going to ask yourself, okay, maybe this is actually something that I should be investing all my time in. Maybe this is, this is my job, quote unquote. And at some point, maybe you will want to move the center of gravity of this activity of yours, this business, outside of the platform because you want to be less dependent for a number of reasons. You don't want to see the platform change their policies overnight, change their algorithm overnight, change this or that overnight, and see your bottom line being, divided by 3, for example. So that's how we think about who the creator, the customer of Pico is, and what are the constraints of creators as digital businesses today.
So that was super helpful. And I want to, well, I was going to say, so we're about at time at the hour. And so I want to make sure that if people need to drop off, they have all the information that's necessary. I will just sort of point out again that we are here talking about the Pico 2.0 launch on Product Hunt. So I'm going to drop that link in the chat. I also want to point out that we're going to go a little bit deeper tonight. I feel like we didn't get into the screens as deeply as I wanted to. But that leaves us plenty of opportunity now that we've done all this backstory where we can actually dig in and think about this stuff. One of the things, I guess I'll just put it on screen. Let me see. I'm going to share my screen briefly. And then let's see this one, and then application window and this guy. It's basically for the design conversation, where we're going to go deeper into the product. We're going to have that conversation tonight over some drinks and cocktails. It'll be late for you guys. I appreciate you guys staying up, but it'll be a little bit more maybe going out to the bar and being super nerds and pulling out the laptop and talking about the flows and how this all works. So that's kind of what's going to happen then. I know Tom is probably going to be actually your afternoon then, so it'll be great. You can actually show up. It's not whatever 7 a.m. or something. Okay, and so let's see. That promo. The one last thing that I want to give you guys to think about, and the Pico guys didn't ask me to do this, but I just thought it would be useful. Is that I think you guys are still hiring, from what I understand, and so I wanted to drop a link for that as well. If you guys are, I don't know, is there any particular roles that you think are relevant or interesting, or I hope you guys have some job openings because I didn't even look.
Yeah, we do. We're hiring across the board, so people should reach out. Not everything is online at the moment because we've been so slammed with the launch.
Yeah.
Not all the job descriptions are even ready, but we are going to hire until the end of the year. So people should pay attention to what's happening at Pico, and feel free to reach out to anyone that's on the call because we will have openings. We have openings, and we will still until the end of the year.
Okay. Was there one last thing that you guys want to add before we wrap up? Any shout outs? What
are we drinking tonight?
Yeah, what are we drinking tonight? I need to restock my bourbon.
Yeah,
it's going to be wine for me, my friend.
Well, that works. That's great. Says the Frenchman. If anybody wants to leave a spirit suggestion, maybe between now and then, I will come up with a cocktail. You can drop it on my Twitter and let me know what you guys think. I have a pinned tweet there, and if you respond, I'll figure something out. I'll put something. We'll call it the Pico, or maybe we'll call it the macro. I don't know. Actually, Nima did ask a question. He wanted to know where the name Pico came from. Was that from the Pico payments? Is that the source of that?
Well, actually, we settled on it when we were on Pico Boulevard in Los Angeles. but we were playing on the idea that Google is like a gigantic number. It's all about big data, right? And we wanted to build a product that's about one-to-one relationships. What's the antithesis of Google? What's on the other side of the scale?
So you didn't go with Nano, you went with Pico, but it's close enough, right?
Yeah. By the way, I thought of the name Pico Sour.
Pico. Oh, okay.
But that's a real drink, by the way.
Yeah, it's not a drink.
Pisco Sour is a Pisco.
Yeah,
Sour.
Sour.
But I appreciate that because I've just gotten into Pisco, so I will come up with some variation and we'll see. Okay, we'll do that. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap for now. This recording is gonna be available on my Super Peer profile. It should be pretty soon. I just gotta tweak some knobs and call up the VHS tape and make sure that it recorded. But yeah, come by later tonight, stop by the Product Hunt launch. If you guys have feedback about this too, or other questions that we didn't answer, feel free to hit us up and let us know. And actually, if you do have those questions, just post them on Product Hunt. These guys are going to be there all day. And so I think
Chris, you said you're going to send me a VHS for my video.
That's
player,
right. Yeah. It's actually going through Blockbuster because now they're doing a distribution play. So
that's where I go to pick up my new streaming videos. I go to Blockbuster. Yeah,
I don't even want to know how you do.
Wasn't there just like a doc? Wasn't there
a documentary
that aired streaming about Blockbuster? It was just kind of hilarious.
It's so good. It's just when the old eats the young. It's a little disgusting, but yeah.
There's when I was in school, Nick and I
fourth grade or
together. Yeah, no. Well, Nick and I also went to together, and
when you were in fourth grade, you went to Stanford. That's good.
A couple years apart. Has the largest DVD collection in the world, except I think Netflix. And so, as a student, you have borrowing privileges from the library, but and they will get any movie ever for you. And it was like a big thing. Yeah, everyone used to go to the DVD library and check out movies. And I really long for those days. They're so simple. Now it's like, where can I get my stream? You have to Google it, anyway.
Is it that hard finding a stream?
for some of us, those of us who don't use Google.
Yeah. Let's all remember who had the old-fashioned phone ring during this hour.
I know, exactly. Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
That was only once because sometimes it's several times during the call.
Yeah, that was before they invented Do Not Disturb.
I think it's an automated block. There's no other explanation. Every 15 minutes he gets a call like
Ma, I gotta go. Ma.
Well, I think I'll have to make an old fashioned tonight. There's really no other.
There's no other way to do it. All right, guys.
All right.
We will be back
Chris.
here in a couple hours, 7 p.m. PST, 10 p.m. Eastern time.
And thanks everyone for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time to learn about Pico. Yeah. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Merci, Chris. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.